It's your boy Marwin, through Fidelity. Today I'm going to show you how to make a nice, tasty, flavorful seafood stew, Colombian style, using only a few ingredients, many that you will have on hand. Prep is pretty simple. It's really about dicing your vegetables. You want a small dice, nice and tight. Of course, it's meaty and firm. Chop it up into smaller cubes, and then go with the clams. Just want to really scrub and clean these well. Now it's the fun stuff. This is where you really get to cook. I start with some butter and some olive oil mixed together as my fat of choice for this dish. I'm going to start to saute my vegetables or my aromatics. Really the goal here is to get that raw taste from the vegetables and soften them up a little bit. You're not going to overly cook them. I add my garlic late because I don't want them to cook too long because it becomes a little bitter. You'll see me season as I go. I like to kind of mix my spices together in a nice ramekin and just add seasoning as I go. That way I don't have to overthink things and don't have to worry about measurements. I've already done that. So my liquid base is a mix of coconut milk and heavy cream. You can use the full fat or the lighter version on your choice. I prefer the full flavor. And then I add my fish stock. I use store-bought. Feel free to make your own if you kind of have the time and the luxury, but you're good either way. Like I said, I just season as I go. That way I add those layers of flavor throughout the dish and make it for a really wonderful dish. You don't want to cook at too high heat because then you'll notice the bubbles and the cream really start to curl up, and so you want to keep this at a nice simmer. Plus the fish is a little delicate. No need to cook at a high heat. It's only going to cook for a few minutes, like literally 2 to 3 minutes before you add the clams. And then once you've added the clams, you can cook these covered again, but again at a low temperature for a short amount of time. Just cook these long enough for the clams to open up. I'm adding some bay scallops, smaller scallops to the dish. These are optional. I like it for the texture. And then, shrimp. I keep the tails on because of just for additional flavor. And also it just kind of looks cool that I see that tail on there. But again, it's important to order the seafood accordingly because you don't want to cook one too fast. Otherwise they become chewy and then you got a whole other problem there. Now that my seafood is pretty much almost ready to go, I'm going to start adding in some other flavor elements like the tomato paste and the white wine. There's a lot of flavor concentrated in the tomato paste, and so it's going to add both color and flavor to the dish. The wine is like the acid to kind of break through all the fat, as well as adding that additional kind of sweetness and the complexity of the wine. And so that's really the dish, and you can let all of this cook, like I said, for 2 to 3 minutes, and you're ready to go. This doesn't take long to come together. You got a really hearty dish with all the different seafood combinations in there, but it's a lot of flavor. The texture's awesome. It's creamy, it's light, it's fun, it's celebratory, and I think you're just gonna love this dish. I garnish it simply with some cilantro. If cilantro's not your thing, parsley can work, a little bit of lime juice. Again, this is a creamy dish, and so the acid really kind of helps to lighten things up. I like the versatility of this dish. It's bright and light enough for those warm months, but also filling and hearty enough for those colder months. That's the dish. Definitely stick around for some of the outtakes where I break down some recipe tips, also some of the music inspirations behind the dish, as well as just a breakdown of the overall ingredients I use. So the actual name of the dish is cazuela de mariscos. I don't speak Spanish, so hopefully I don't butcher it too bad, but it's a Colombian dish, or not just Colombia, they make it in other Latin American countries as well, like Ecuador and Chile. But it's a seafood stew. But the dish is it's a very comforting dish, despite it being, pretty, I won't call it light because there's a lot of cream in the dish, but it is, lighter than your typical stews when you think about meat stews and bean stews and things of that nature. But it's a slow simmer broth that's very aromatic, very fragrant, great color, a lot of different things, some of the senses that are going on with the dish. The base of the dish is, besides the broth and the fish or the seafood, is the vegetables. I use a combination of like mild pepper, sweet peppers, onions, garlic, celery, chopped very finely. You can blend these if you want after cooking them, which is what I do for like a little smoother texture. In this dish, in this version, I chose not to, but most times that I make it, I will actually use a immersion blender and blend it all in the pot to get that more smoother consistency. And also the flavors kind of come together a little bit when it's all blended together. So the inspiration behind this dish is really just simply a trip to Colombia that my wife and I took. It was our last meal in Cartagena. We went to a restaurant called Almost Bar and Restaurant, or Restaurant and Bar. Really low-key spot, but really, really great seafood, which is why we chose it. And the waiter recommended that we have this stew, and it was awesome. I never forgot it, partly because it was the last meal on a really great trip, but it just kind of encapsulated what that trip was all about, which was fun and adventure and just good times in a really cool city. I remember when we landed, from a music inspiration standpoint, the taxi driver pulled up and we got in and he was blasting this song. The song that really inspired the dish is by an artist named Willie Gonzalez, but it was really celebratory, loud. Dude was having a party all to himself. I don't even know that he knew that we were in the car. Still not sure how he knew like our destination because he never turned the volume down. That thing was on 10. And he was really grooving and singing all the words. Like I said, I don't speak Spanish, but I knew that it was a fun song. I knew it was a party song. I knew it was good times. I knew it was just like happy because my guy was all in it. And so I went and did a Shazam on the song and found it. And I highly recommend you turn it up when you want a good time, when you want to party. But also if you're having this dish, it's a really, really great song. But it's such a happy song, such a party song, such a feel-good song that I thought it really just kind of captured the essence of what this dish is about, which is it's comforting, but it's fun, it's celebratory, it's exciting, it's exuberant, it's just good times, good feels, all love. And that's what my man was on. And that was really like what our trip was really about. It was just fun, adventurous, good times. Really remember it, remember the dish. Definitely listen to a little Willie Gonzalez when you make this dish, or anytime you need to kind of feel good and kind of get that tempo going. So just a few tips on this dish. Like I said, it's a really simple dish to make. I think with seafood, anytime you're using seafood in a stew, quality really matters. So choose the freshest that's available to you and that's most affordable. If you're using clams, make sure you clean them really well. You want to get rid of the salt water. You don't want to get rid of the sand that could be collecting on the clams. Speaking of clams, when you cook them, if any don't open up, just throw them out of the dish. They're no good for the dish, and so you really want to avoid that. Only include the ones that open up during the cooking time. Something else to keep in mind, the order in which you cook the seafood or add the seafood to the pot really matters. The fish, it's firm, it's meaty. It takes a little longer than, let's say, the shrimp or maybe even the clams or some other things that you're adding like scallops. And so I add that in first and then there's a succession. So follow the way in which I introduce them in the dish and you should be fine. Just know that you're not gonna be cooking the seafood that a really long time because it'll get chewy and really tough to chew, and you really don't want that texture to mess up the vibe that you have going on. So it's all delicate. So simmer at a really low temperature and not too long is really like the takeaway. Don't be afraid to mix things up with the seafood. Choose, again, what's available to you, what's your preference. Mussels are a good substitute. If you want to get fancy, you can do lobster, crawfish. Pretty much any seafood will work in the dish. It's really about having that really strong, tight base with the broth and the vegetables. And then you can, decide on what types of fish or what types of seafood you want to add to the dish. The last thing I'll say is this is not a dish that you want to let sit out. You really want to serve this hot. And I don't even recommend like saving it and reheating it. Reheating seafood is kind of tricky. there are ways to do it, but it's work, and more often than not, you don't get the same experience with the dish that you had before because the texture of the fish changes when you try to reheat it. Oh, one last thought. Make sure you have some bread on hand to go with the dish because the sauce is amazing. Anything that's left behind, you'll want to sop that up, no doubt. I don't know about you, but I'm a big sopper. I believe in steady sopping when it comes to bread and good sauce and good broth and all of that good stuff. So don't forget, if you dig the dish, definitely leave a comment. Most importantly, hit that like button as well as subscribe, and you get recipes, updates each week when I add new recipes directly to your email. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for vibing with me. Don't forget, always, be inspired, but also try to inspire others. I'll see you next week. Peace out.